Yes, what a guest we have this week. It's only the former Stockport, Hartlepool, Dundee United and Rangers player, Jon Daly. Jon had a hugely successful career, especially in Scotland, where he won the Scottish Cup with Dundee United and was most recently a coach at Hearts. Jon, how are you?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me on.
That's okay. How's lockdown been, Jon?
It's been a frustrating experience, I suppose, for just myself and for everyone, I'd imagine. But we seem to be getting through it now, which is a positive. So, hopefully it won't be too long before we're all back to normality and back to our everyday lives.
Have you managed to play any football or do any football related activities during lockdown?
Just out the back garden with the kids, with my two girls. They both play for the local side down in West Lothian for Blackburn, so they're missing their training, and so we've been out the back garden doing a little bit, and they've just been practicing and trying to keep improving, and so when they do go back, they're still at the levels that they were at when they left.
Brilliant. That's the best times, isn't it? Playing in the back garden, having
Yeah,
fun.
no, it is good. I tend to be stuck in goal, so they normally stick me in goal and keep shooting at me. They tell me I kick the ball too hard at them. Um, but it's I just see it as character building when they're in goal and I'm shelling shots at them.
How is the goalie skills, Jon?
Not great, not great. I was years and years ago. I was, like a sub goalkeeper when I was at Stockport. But that was down to the fact that I played Gaelic football as a kid. When I was in school, I wasn't down to my goalkeeping skills.
Jon, you were born in Dublin, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I was born in Dublin in 1983. So I grew up in Dublin. Played for. I started out football with my local team, Ashwood, which was the estate I lived in. I was 7, I think I was, and I played for the under nines or under tens maybe. I think they only had that was the youngest team they started with. And then after the year there, I went to Cherry Orchard, which was one of the top schoolboy teams in Dublin at the time. Very lucky to get in there and get the opportunity to play there, and really enjoyed it. And I was there till I was 15 before I moved to Stockport.
Jon, how did you get into football initially?
So my dad used to coach. My dad played at an amateur level in Ireland. I didn't get to see him, or if I did, I don't remember seeing much of him. I would have been really young. But from what I remember and what I've been told, he was a really good player. I don't think he took it serious enough to push for, the pro side. I think he was quite happy just to play with his friends, and he went into coaching, and he coached at a decent level. He coached Crumlin United and Cherry Orchard, who, as I just said, were one of the top teams in Dublin at the time. So when he was taking sessions, I would, as a youngster, I would just join in the sessions. He took my brother's older team. My brother was, 3, 4 years older. So I would just, if they were doing shooting drills or anything like that, I would just grab a ball and join the queue. And I kind of got the love for it then. And yeah, just from that, and then just from playing with my friends, out on the street and in the field and all the usual stuff. I just remember coming home from school, and you chuck your bag in, and the first thing you do is grab your football and be out on the field, and you be doing your homework 10 minutes before you're due to go to school in the morning. But
That's
yeah,
not
that's
advice
kind of
for
my
encouraging, Jon, right? That's not
no,
advice for
that's definitely not
encouraging.
do your homework first. That was just me being silly. But no, that was kind of the generation, I suppose. You're out in the fields, out on the road playing football, and the game I used to love was, I don't know whether you played it over here. It was poli, like where you had the lamppost and the tree, and if they were aligned, that was your target. It used to be 1v1s and 2v2s, and that was a really good game we used to play. And we were quite fortunate that we were down the end of a cul-de-sac, that there was no oncoming traffic, I suppose, that you could just go out on the street and play, and it was great.
Did you ever do anything on your own? Or was it always with your friends and things like that? Practice, I mean.
Yeah, no, so as I said, we were the very last house of a cul-de-sac, so our house faced the back of another house, so there was a wall. So I used to grab a ball and I'd just go out. If there was no friends to play with, I'd just go out and I'd play and hit off the wall and just practice on your touch and your accuracy of hitting the wall. And then I remember my mum and dad bought me a Kickmaster, one of the handheld ones, right? You would kick it. It was like a dog lead with a net on it, and you would kick it and press the button. It would stop and then come back at you, and you just work on your touch. And they're my kind of earliest memories. Just playing myself, and I was always quite happy to do that. I know some kids need that, companionship, and you need that, other person with them. But I was always very much comfortable just going out and practicing myself, and I was always quite happy to do so. I obviously had an older brother who would generally play with you as well. He loved football as well. So if he wasn't around to play, then I would just go and do it myself. Yeah.
Brilliant. And who were your heroes growing up?
My hero was Mark Hughes, to be honest. He was my idol. I was a big Man United fan. My brother got me into Man United at a young age. He was a massive Man United fan. He had all the posters and all on the wall, and he had a shrine to Sir Matt Busby in the corner of our room. So he was really the one that pushed us towards Man U. And I think being a striker and the main striker at the time for Man United was Mark Hughes, and I just loved the way he played. I loved his style, the goals he scored. I don't think the youngsters nowadays would know an awful lot about him, but he scored some cracking goals. And I just liked the way he played. He was a physical type striker, and he was someone that I tried to emulate as I played.
Brilliant. John, you mentioned Cherry Orchard, and I was reading about Cherry Orchard. Loads of Irish players, Andy Reid, Connor Salmon, Eddie Stevens, Stokes, Glenn Whelan came through Cherry Orchard. Also noticed that Willow Flood and Sean Dillon did as well.
Yeah.
Did you know them at Cherry Orchard? Were you around those guys? Because you obviously played together at Dundee United.
Yeah, so I played with Dillo in the same team, and we obviously were same age group with the Ireland setup as well. So we knew each other, and we actually lived not too far from each other back home. We were probably maybe 10 minutes or so away from each other. Willow, I kind of was aware of him. I knew him a little bit, because he was at the younger age group, but we kind of, you were aware of him, because he was one of the top players at that age group. Same with Glenn Whelan. But yeah, I think, Sean and Willow, like, as I said, we knew each other growing up. And Willow was a funny one, actually, because Willow went to Man City when I was at Stockport. Stockport and Man City are quite close to each other. And Paddy McCarthy was at Man City at the time, and he actually was living with me at the time. So, Willow and Glenn and Stephen Elliott and that used to come around to the house quite a lot. So we had a really close connection of Irish boys down in Manchester at that time. And that was good for all of us, just to, we weren't in a foreign country on our own. We had that connection with each other, and as I said, we were all then involved with the same underage Ireland setup as well, which was great.
It's funny how things turn out. You all end up at the one club at the end together. See, Cherry Orchard, John, what was the standard like there? What was taught to you guys? Was it more tactical stuff, technical stuff? Was it physical? Was it a mix of all three?
I think it was a mix. Yeah, I think when you were, I find it's difficult for the coaches at that age group, because they only have you for an hour and a half, probably 2 times a week. But they were great. They were really good coaches. A lot of probably from a younger age was probably technical, and then as you start to get older, you start to get more position specific detail on what's expected of you. And but the standard was really good. As I said, it was one of the top teams in Dublin, and we were always competing at the right end of the table for league titles and for trophies and cups, and we won a lot of medals there, and we won a lot of trophies there. So it was a great time, and it was a great club to be at. And as I said, a lot of credit to the coaches, because they obviously set us off on the right foot, and I think it's up to us as the players to be receptive to taking on information. It's all well and good having a good coach that's giving you the right information, but if you're not going to take on that information, then you're not going to improve.
Absolutely. 1998, you moved to Stockport. How did that move come about, John?
So yeah, I was playing with Cherry Orchard at the time, and at the time there was a lot of kind of scouts coming to our games. As I said, we were a successful team, so you would have maybe 10, 12 scouts at a game, and Stockport had a scout over at a couple of games, Austin Spate, and he recommended to the club that they bring myself and Keith Fahey across. So we both went across, and we played in a game, trained with the young team, and really enjoyed it, done well. And I think they invited us back again. So I went back over the second time. I don't think Keith went back across. Keith ended up going to Arsenal, I think. So I went back across. I enjoyed my time there. I thought it was a really friendly family club. So when they offered me a contract, I was more than happy to sign. As I said, I felt the coaches there were good as well. And, Craig Madden was the youth team coach. He was a former striker in his day. So I felt it would be good for me to go somewhere where, you have a coach who understands the role that you're trying to play. And yeah, I was delighted to go across there, and I just felt there would be an opportunity to progress and to get an opportunity in the first team, because there was a lot of players from my area that went to clubs at that time that were bigger and probably more well known than Stockport County, and within maybe a year or two they'd come back to Ireland. So I kind of wanted to try and have a bit of longevity in my career and have an opportunity to be exposed to first team football, I suppose. And I knew Stockport wouldn't have the finances, they wouldn't have the resources that if the striker wasn't doing well or they got injured, they didn't have them finances to go out and spend hundreds of £1,000s on a striker. So they would have to look within their academy system or within the club. And I knew that if I did well, that I would be given an opportunity, and thankfully that kind of worked out to be the way it panned out. And I made my debut at 16. Probably I felt at the time it was great, being chucked into the first team. But looking back now, I was probably a bit immature, probably physically, and I probably wasn't ready for that chance. But you're never going to knock that opportunity back as a kid. You just want to go in and play, and you try and take it with both hands.
I would knock back that opportunity now. Never mind being a kid.
No, true.
How old were you when you went across, John? Because it sounds like you're amazingly perceptive about the decision and what it could lead to. How old were you when you 15. Went across? Nice.
Yeah, 15. Yeah. So yeah, it was a big decision, and I had there were other clubs interested, and I think there would have been other clubs that probably were financially offering more money, and but I think a lot of credit has to go to my parents. They were really supportive, and I'd kind of made my mind up that I wanted to go to Stockport because I just had a good vibe and a good feeling from the club, and my parents had gone across as well, and they had the same feeling for it. But they were really supportive of the decision, and they never kind of pushed me either one way or the other. They kind of just let me make that decision, which for a 15-year-old it's a big decision. And as I said, the trust of my parents to make that decision, and then you get the full support and backing from them as well, which was fantastic.
I know it's just Stockport, I know it's just Dublin, and it's quite a short distance relatively, but you're only 15. Did you miss home? Was it difficult to adjust, or were you just embracing the experience at that age?
Not really, no. I was just delighted to be given that opportunity and to get a chance to go away. I think even as a kid, when I had teachers and I had my peers in school ask me what I was going to do when I was older, I always said I'm going to be a football player. And some of them would laugh at you and be saying, well, no, but seriously, what are you going to do? And I was like, no, that's what I am going to do. I'm going to be a football player. And I just had that, I suppose, single-mindedness. It was, some people might say it's a silly way to be, but I had a real focus on what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve. And if it hadn't have happened, then I genuinely hadn't a clue what I would have done, what I would have went on to. I think I was quite academic in school, so I probably would have just pursued that and seen where that brought me, and maybe tried to earn a scholarship or something like that, if professional side hadn't have came calling.
I think it's a lesson in have a dream and chase that dream for as long as possible. Give it a shot at the very least. Don't give up despite what other people tell you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think there's so many different avenues and so many different routes you can go down. I just spoke about scholarships there. Like if you really commit to it and and it doesn't happen professionally, there are other opportunities, and there are other pathways you can go down. If you are academic in school, there's opportunities in America, to do scholarships. We recently, when I was at Hearts, we had a player that, he probably was close to the first team, but he was an academic. He was really good in school, really good player. But at the time, he was probably finding that he was getting limited opportunities. So he had the opportunity to go to the States and take on a scholarship. And, I spoke to Craig, he was the director of football at the time, and he was a bit reluctant to let him go. But, I thought for him as a player, it was the best opportunity, and it was the best chance, to go and do a scholarship, to go and further his education whilst playing football. And, he's excelled out there, and he's done really well. And, I think he's getting to the stage now where he probably end up getting picked in the draft for the MLS, So, so there are other opportunities, as I said, and, I think it's not to get disheartened by it, and at the end of the day, it's about opinions, isn't it? The game is all about opinions, and one person's opinion doesn't mean that you're not gonna have a career in the game. So, so yeah, you're right. Pursue that dream and fully, commit to it. And if it's not going to work out or it doesn't happen for you, at least then you can, when you're a little bit older, you can actually say, well, you know what? I gave it my full. I gave it everything. I gave it every opportunity, and just wasn't to be.
It's great advice, John. I know lots of people who've been the victim of opinion, and it is just opinion. John, see in that Stockport youth team, I think you scored quite a few goals for not only the youth team but the reserve team. What was the training like there? Was it vastly different to what you're used to, or was it just what you were used to? You bedded in straight away, started scoring goals?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was like drastically different. I would say the standard was better, which obviously then it leads to an increase in tempo. So that was probably the biggest difference, having to deal with that, intensity, and having to deal with the tempo being quicker, So, I think sometimes when you're one of the better players in the group that you're in, you can sometimes get away with things. You can take extra touches, you can probably, be a bit loose and still get away with it. But when you go into a level where it's a step up, you need to adjust, and you definitely need to find a way, and find a way to play. And I think I found that I had to move the ball quicker. I had to limit my touches, and I'd gone from probably being a strong player, in my own age group, to now playing with players that were maybe 3-4 years older than me, that were physically stronger, physically quicker. I used to actually have a bit of pace when I was younger.
No.
I think not a lot of people wouldn't believe that, but I used to be quite quick. I think it was the injuries that took its toll on me. But yeah, you're coming up against players then that are stronger than you, quicker than you. So you then have to work out a way of dealing with that. And I think, again, when I went into the coaching side at Hearts and you're dealing with the under-20s, it's very, very similar. You're trying to bring players up from the younger age groups that are doing well at their own age group, and then you're trying to give them the opportunities at under-20s level. And they do find it difficult initially, because they're used to taking an extra touch. They're used to maybe being able to brush a player off the ball, and now they're the ones that are probably a little bit weaker, a little bit slower. So now they have to move the ball quicker, and I think it does excel them quicker. And I think once they grasp that and they get used to that, I think it does help their development, and I think it does improve them vastly.
John, you mentioned earlier on about making your debut. Was it 16?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're the second youngest player to ever play for Stockport. Just on that subject about the jump from youth team, reserve team football to the first team, how big is that?
Massive. It's a massive jump. As I said, physically, it's demanding. I think energy-wise, you're fine, because you have that adrenaline and you have that buzz of just playing in the first team in front of a big crowd. And but yeah, physically, it's night and day. Because as I said, you're playing against players, in your own age group that are at the same level as you in terms of your growth and in terms of your physical development. And now you're going to playing against men who are, have been around the block, understand the game, understand all the little tricks and the little things that they can do and you can get away with off the ball. And so you're kind of put in a situation where you have to adapt very, very quickly, or you're not going to stay in that team, and you're not going to adapt, or you're not going to get many other opportunities. So it was again, it was an opportunity that you're not going to say no to, and you're not going to knock back. But I do feel now, when I look back at it, Jesus, I was probably a little bit, a little bit off it, I suppose. But again, it was something I enjoyed, and I enjoyed that challenge, and it does stand you in good stead once you get over that initial shock of it, I suppose.
And how do you feel at that time, John, when you make your debut? You're obviously 16 years old. God, I didn't know what I was doing at 16. Didn't know where I was going, anything. You're playing first team football. How does that make you feel? I guess you're really, really proud of all the hard work you put in up to that point.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it kind of, I suppose, it makes your decisions. It feels like they're vindicated. I suppose that you've made it. I've made the decision to choose Stockport over other clubs because I wanted to get first team football. I didn't expect it to come that quickly. I didn't expect to be in the team at 16. Obviously there was circumstances, but and the circumstances that I kind of, when I was signing for Stockport, that I knew that if they happened, I would get an opportunity. So you had injuries to players and suspensions, etc. That open up that chance. But yeah, I think it's vindication, I suppose, that you've made that decision. But it's just a start. I think you can sometimes believe the hype, I suppose. And you can sometimes think, right, that's brilliant, I've made my debut. But realistically, that's the first step on on the first rung on a big ladder that you've got to keep climbing. And so it was great. And it was pride, and it was, I felt like it was great for my family as well, to experience that as well.
So, John, at Hearts, when you're under 20s coach, I'm guessing that experience that you had back then helped in that role, talking to the kids and getting them ready for that step up, essentially.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing, I suppose. Like, when you go into that side of it, you try and give them your experiences. Of obviously they have to make their own way, and they have to make their own decisions. But you can help them in terms of, the mistakes that you've made maybe at that age, that you can maybe say, right, well, we did it this way, I was done that way. The game has changed massively since then, and it is totally different. But yeah, the speaking to the players and talking to them about experiences that you had, I think does help them. But ultimately, they need to go and make them mistakes themselves, and then when they do, you can sit in, you can do video analysis with them, you can show them the areas. And I think the video analysis side of it is really, really good, and I think that's come on massively. Since I first started playing, I think it's a great tool to use. And I think it's great when you sit there, especially when you sit down with the younger players, and you sometimes just let them, give you the right answers, and you let them find the answer themselves rather than just telling them this is what you should have done, that's what you should have done. I think you can kind of lead them to the right place, through your line of questioning as well.
Yeah, absolutely. John, I know, you were at Stockport, you went on loan to a few clubs, and then you went to Hartlepool. I'm just going to skip ahead to when you signed for Dundee United in 2007. Really interested in how that move came about.
Yeah, so I was obviously at Hartlepool at the time. I'd gone back to Hartlepool that summer, like in the 2006. And my squad number had changed from 16 to 25, so I thought that's not a good sign. That's not how you want to start off the season. And then I spoke to the manager, and he told me that I was kind of surplus to requirements. I always found them situations a challenge, and I always tried to rise to the occasion on them ones. So I kind of was, I took it on the chin, and I just, I wasn't in his plans. But again, I knew that if something happened within the squad, if someone got injured, I was going to get an opportunity. And then I got that opportunity to get back in the team, and I grabbed it with both hands, and scored goals, and played well. So I kept myself in the team. And then, I got a call from an agent to say that Dundee United had a bit of interest in me. So I spoke to Gavin Strachan, who was there at the time, and he'd played in Scotland. So I asked him about Scotland because, to be honest, I didn't know an awful lot about Scottish football. It didn't get an awful lot of coverage down in England. So you didn't really know an awful lot about Scottish football. So he recommended that, he said Dundee United are a huge football club, a massive club to go, definitely jump at the chance. And I'm delighted I took his advice and I came up the road because, it was a fantastic move for me and my family. And it's probably, when I look back on it, it's probably the fondest memories of my career. And I would imagine, it's probably the most prolific time of my career as well. So, I had 6.5 fantastic years there, and very grateful to Craig Levine for bringing me up and Peter Houston for bringing me up. I think Houston had come down to watch me in one of the games, and he said, I remember him telling me the story that 45 minutes half time, he rang the manager, rang Craig, and was like, "We need to sign this player. He's definitely what we need." And so it was great to come up and great to feel wanted, I suppose. Obviously starting that season off with a probably a negative where you feel like you're not wanted, and again, an opinion. But I just seen that as an opportunity to try and prove them wrong. And when the opportunity came to go to Dundee United, I was delighted.
Brilliant. You signed in the January transfer window, John.
Yeah.
How much more difficult is it to sign in that window compared to the summer?
Yeah, I think it is, because you're coming into a squad you don't know. You're also coming into a team that you don't know how they play, or so it's trying to get the rhythm straight away. And I found it a bit difficult at first. When I first came in, I enjoyed the training, and I actually thought the level was better than I expected. As I said, it doesn't get an awful lot of coverage, or airtime down in England. So I wasn't sure of the standard, but I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was actually better than the standard I'd been playing at. The level I'd been playing at was more, about the physical side of it. Whereas up in Scotland, I felt, especially Dundee United, I thought we tried to play more. We tried to keep the ball on the ground more, and I really enjoyed that. And yeah, it's difficult when you come in January. And I did. I think it took me a while to get off the mark as well, which was it was frustrating, to say the least, because as a striker you want to score as early as you can, and you want to feel like you are, you want to feel like you're part of the squad. And I think when you're a striker and you're not scoring goals, you kind of feel, like you're not producing, or you're not contributing. And but no, my teammates were great, and the boys were all brilliant, and the manager and the coaching staff were great with me. They were patient, and I was obviously a bit unfortunate that when I did get off the mark and I felt like I was going to hit the ground again and get going, I ended up doing my cruciate. So I was out for another 5 or 6 months after that.
You mentioned getting off the mark, John. Your first goal, I think, was against Celtic.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone's got you labelled as just a big target man, they should watch that goal. That was some athleticism, that first goal. What a goal that was. How do you feel, John, when that goes in? First goal for your new club, as you say.
Yeah, I think if you watch the goal and you watch the celebrations, you see how I feel. I'm ecstatic, and I'm delighted. And I think to score an equaliser against Celtic that late on, it was brilliant. Big Lee Wilkie came up as kind of a last minute target man, and we were just bombing balls forward, and he's kind of jumped to flick it on, and I positioned myself that in an area where I thought if he flicks it on, I can maybe go and compete for it, or if he misses it, it's maybe going to come to me. And he done enough to put the defender off, and it just bounced in front of me. And I've side volleyed it, I suppose. I don't score many like that. So yeah, it was a special goal for me at that time. And as I said, to get off the mark, it was just a relief. There was a load of emotions. It was relief. It was obviously the excitement of scoring your first goal, and the occasion that it was as well. It was a packed Tannadice. The crowd were right on the the side of the team. They were right behind the team. And as I said, the score, it wasn't just an equaliser again, and it actually meant something because it got us a point. You know, the goals that I've scored that haven't got us anything, not that they've not meant anything. Obviously, it's always great to score, but I would always rather win a game of football than score, if I'm being honest. So to score a goal that actually got the team something was great.
Yeah, John, you mentioned the injuries and they played a big part in, especially the early part of your career at Dundee United. How frustrating is it to sign for a team, get off the mark, and then get a long-term injury at that point?
Yeah, it's kind of like you go to. I find you go through stages with injuries. You know, when it happens, you kind of have that, you know, feeling sorry for yourself, feeling of, you know, why me, you know. But I tried to get over that that period and that feeling very, very quickly. You know, because you can go to a real dark place. You know, if you're sitting there and you're feeling sorry for yourself. And I kind of looked at it and I thought, right, I can either feel sorry for myself, or I can take it on the chin and I can reassess, and I can look at areas of my game that I want to improve and I want to get better at. And you know, I think that was kind of, you know, I've had maybe three career-threatening injuries where, you know, really bad injuries where each one I've always said to myself, right, when I come back, I want to come back a better player and I want to come back physically stronger. And you know, that first one I felt, you know, I came back stronger, I came back fitter than I had ever been. And I felt like I came back with a better understanding of my role and understanding of my position. So I think it's about trying to use the time wisely and use it effectively, you know, because as I said, you can kind of just let the time fly by and then before you know it, you're back playing again, but you haven't really gained anything from it. So it's using that time while you're out to try and, you know, come back in a better place.
And how do you stay involved with the squad when you're injured like that? Is it fairly easy or is it pretty difficult? Not being inside a dressing room myself, so I honestly don't know.
Yeah, well, you're obviously still around in training and stuff like that, and you know, you're still getting changed in the same changing rooms, and you're obviously just on a bit of a different schedule in terms of what you're doing. You're obviously not out on the training pitch with them, but you're still in at the same times. Initially, you know, the first period, you're maybe, you know, if you're having an operation or something, you maybe have a week away, and then you come back, and once you start to do your rehab and you start to get back involved, you know, I think it's really important. You know, the coaches again were great. You know, I've been at other clubs where, you know, if you're injured, you're not, you know, the manager doesn't think he can use you, so you kind of out of sight, out of mind, and you can kind of feel like you're not part of it, you know. But to be fair to the manager and the coaching staff, they were great. They always, you know, tried to include you in everything, and so yeah, so it can be difficult, but you know, as I said, like myself, Willow, Yellow, and Hunty, and that at the time all lived fairly close to each other, and we used to travel to training together. So you're still traveling in with the same lads and having the same crack in the car, and yeah, so you're just, it's frustrating because you can't contribute on the Saturday when it matters, but you know, you can still play a part in the change rooms and in the build up in the week, I suppose.
I can only imagine those car rides must have been
Yeah.
carnage. You mentioned the manager Craig Levine, who obviously signed you. What kind of manager was he, John?
I thought he was very meticulous in his work, and he kind of left no stone unturned. You know, the video analysis was kind of probably just starting out then, and he was, you know, really, really good with the analysis of the opposition and then of yourselves. You know, you went out on the pitch and everyone knew exactly what their job was, what their role was, whether it's, you know, in the shape of the team or whether it was at set plays, or, you know, you always knew what was expected of you. And I think, you know, he was, as I said, he was really, really meticulous. He had a fine detail in everything that he did. And, you know, I think he surrounded himself. And I think another important factor for managers, head coaches, is surrounding yourself with people that complement you as well, you know. So Peter Houston, he had Peter Houston as his assistant. Tony Docherty was a great coach as well. Gary Kirk he had on the staff as well. So, you know, the three of them complemented him as well, you know, and they they got his message across to the players as well. Even when he wasn't around, he knew that he could trust what they were telling the players was what he wanted them to tell, I suppose. And so it's a credit to him that the staff that he had as well were excellent.
Brilliant. John, let's jump ahead to the 2008-9 season. I think you were injured. You returned in that season. You scored a few goals. Then you got injured again, John. You were supposed to be out for 12 months, I think it was, but you weren't out for 12 months. You returned November 2009. Some kind of miracle. I'm not sure how you managed to return so early. But on your return, I remember it, you knitted against Celtic after coming on as a substitute, and just, again, pure relief. You could see in the crowd, the whole stadium just sort of erupted and was so happy for you. And they were even happier when Darren Dodds scored the winner. Yeah. See, when you score and the Eddie Thompson stand erupts and everyone's happy for you, how are you feeling at that point, John?
No, it's just an unbelievable feeling. It's hard to describe. Because you kind of just feel like you're floating, I suppose. And it was that one especially that was a special one because you'd worked extremely hard to get yourself back, and again I tried to come back in good condition, and I worked really, really hard to get myself built up to a physical condition that I could come back quicker than anticipated. And I think in the build up to that, I wasn't probably expecting to be involved, to be honest. I still probably felt maybe I was a couple of weeks away, and again, you get asked if you want to go on the bench, you're not going to say no. So, I went on the bench, and obviously the rest is history. You come on, teams were 1-0 down, and came on and scored, I think, probably one of my first touches. And then obviously Doddsy getting the winner. It was just a remarkable result for us. And I think at the time, we always felt with that team that, we always felt we were a match for anyone on our day, and we felt we could beat anyone on our day if we performed to the levels that we were capable of performing to. That we felt we could compete with most teams in the league, and that was a good squad, and it was a good group, a really close knit group, and again you've got to credit the staff and the manager and everyone at the club for assembling players that complement each other in that way.
You mentioned the squad, Webster, Dillon, Conway, Swanson, Gomez, Prince, Goodwillie. There's a lot of talent in there. As you said, is it easier? It's probably a daft question, but is it easier to play with a group like that than maybe a less talented group? Are they just laying chances on for you, John? Is what I'm trying to ask, as opposed to you having to work a little bit harder for your chances.
Yeah, well, I think it's getting an understanding of your teammates. I think, like for instance, Conway was different class, but I knew when Conway went on his left foot that it was always going to come into the front area, so there'd be no point me peeling into the back post. So you kind of get, and through speaking to him and through just working with him and training, I used to always ask Conway what areas he liked to hit and what areas he wanted to put the ball in, just so then I had an idea where I needed to go. Now, granted, he's not always going to put it in that area, but he's a good player. So 7, 8 times out of 10, if he's trying to put it into an area, it's going to go in that area. There might only be 1 or 2 times that it doesn't. So it's trying to leave that space free until that last second where you can attack the ball. And then Paul Dixon was around that time as well. He crossed a lot of balls for me to score off. Again, he was another one that I knew once he got the ball 15, 20 yards inside the opposition half, there was a chance it was getting crossed. So you would get into positions where you could attack it and try and get on the end of that. And I think it becomes in training, working together and just communicating with each other and trying to find out. I think for me it was like, I obviously liked to go into certain areas in the box, but there's no point in me going into them areas if they're not going to cross the ball into that area. They're not trying to cross the ball into that area. So I think it's trying to work out and trying to, through speaking to them, trying to find out what they like to do and then trying to adjust yourself and your own movements to what they're trying to do.
Yeah, well, that's top advice for any kids watching and wanting to learn the game. Going back to that goal against Celtic, John, after that you couldn't stop scoring. and the team couldn't stop winning. You finished that season top scorer, and you had a Scottish Cup winners medal as well. Is that the high point of the career, John?
Yeah, totally. To win a Scottish Cup, I was only speaking to someone else on a podcast recently about winning medals. I'd come from a club as a kid, Cherry Orchard, where it was ingrained in you. You won every week, you won trophies, you won league titles, and then when you then go into the professional game, it's tougher and it is really, really hard to win trophies. So you go from that mentality of, every year getting medals to, you're playing at a professional level, and it's tough because, there's a lot more elements that come into it. Some clubs are, financially able to go and buy better players. So the chances that you have to win medals become few and far between. So when you get that opportunity to win a medal and the Scottish Cup with, the history of it, and, I think it's the oldest trophy in the world. So, to have gone down in history as a member of a team that have won the Scottish Cup, it's a great feeling, and to do it at a club like Dundee United, with the history of the club and everything that goes along with it, it was fantastic, and it was just an unbelievable, couple of days. In fact, it was an unbelievable couple of weeks because we went on a stag do afterwards. So it was surreal, and it's only when you actually look back now, at the time you probably don't appreciate, you just kind of float through it all, and you probably don't appreciate the momentous occasion that it actually is. And so yeah, when I look back at it, I look back with great pride. And we just had our daughter was a couple of years old then. She was at the game, and all my family were over at the game. So it was just a great time for not just myself and the club, but my family as well. It was something special for them as well. And again, it kind of vindicates that decision to go and try and pursue a career in the game. And a moment like that, to share it with your family and all, was tremendous.
The fans really enjoyed it as well, I can tell you that. John, let's talk about the put your hands up chant. First I recall of ever hearing about it was just a bunch of guys started it singing at a wedding or something. It went viral on United message boards. When did you start to become aware of the chant?
Yeah, that's a funny one actually, because I obviously wasn't aware of it at all, and then it was Paul Reid, who was the commercial manager at the club. We were all quite friendly, and I think, as I said, like, everyone at the club got along, and we were always up at the club and seeing people, and just dropping into the offices to see how people were. And I went in to see Reedy one day, and he'd noticed that on something. I don't know if it was on Facebook or anything, but it was two guys, obviously, in some, I don't know whether it was a wedding or they were on holidays, and it was but he showed me it, and he just said, "Oh, next time you score, you need to put your hands up." So obviously we were playing Aberdeen that weekend up at Todry, and I scored. Lo and behold, I scored. And I just ran over to the fans and I put my hands up, and they all done it back, and it kind of just snowballed from there. Before I knew it, they had T-shirts and had a song, and so it was good, and it was great, and it was nice to have a celebration, I suppose, and to have something that was associated with you. But obviously credit to the two guys that were, fairly well on, I suppose we should say, when they done it. And again, good memories, and something that will live with me forever.
Must have been surreal, John, because it was like 20,000 doing it at the cup final, and some of those 20,000, as you said, had the T-shirts with your face on it. Must have been a very surreal experience.
It was, yeah, and that's my only disappointment is I didn't score. If I could have scored, so you could see the whole of Hampden, doing it in that. For an actual goal would have been superb. But I think, as I said earlier, I was always the player that I was more than happy just to win the game, especially a game like that. You're just happy to win, and I still felt I contributed to the goals in that game. But it was brilliant to see, and it was again, my little one had a T-shirt made up, put your hands up for Daddy. So we now have that framed with the medal and the shirt and the little tiny little top saying "Put your hands up for Daddy."
Brilliant. Memories that money can never buy.
No, 100%.
The season after that, John played in Europe. You must have been proud of that.
Yeah, no, again, like I always look back at my times at the different clubs, and you know, you obviously look back with pride, and then there's situations you look back, and I wouldn't say it's regret, but it's probably, you know, it's a feeling of, oh, I wish we had have done this, or we wish we had have done that, and you know, if you could change something about it, you know, I would have loved to experience, you know, and to give the fans, you know, European nights in the group stages. You know, we'd obviously seen Aberdeen had done it, you know, they Bayern Munich and that at Pittodrie, and it would have been fantastic. And I think we were really close, you know, on a couple of occasions. I think, you know, the one in particular, AEK Athens, was probably the one that I felt, you know, was the one where we let it slip. You know, getting beat 1-0 at home, and then going out there, which was again was a bit weird. You know, no fans in the stadium apart from 500-600 United fans right up the top of the stand. And we went 1-0 down, and I know you came off the bench and scored to make it 2-1, and we knew that if we'd scored again, we would go through to the actual group stages on away goals. And the ball dropped to Swanee on the edge of the box, and you're kind of thinking, brilliant, it's Swanee, he's got the technical ability, he takes it down, and as he hit it, he caught it sweet, and you're thinking, this is in the corner, and it just went past the post by 1 inch, 2 inches, and you're kind of, I look back at that and think, you know, what if that had gone in, you know, and I think that group in particular, you know, I think it would have been fantastic to see how we would have fared in that environment, you know, because as I said, we felt we were a really good team, and we felt that on our day we could compete, and especially the European nights, you know, what we did experience of it, you know, it was a different atmosphere at Tannadice, and it was electric, and you know, there was always good atmospheres at the stadium. It was a really good stadium to generate an atmosphere, but the European nights just felt different. I don't know what it was. It was maybe the fans came in a bit earlier. You know, I don't know what it was, but it did always seem to have a different type of atmosphere at it. And as I said, it's just that when I look back on my time at United, I look back and think, you know, I would have loved to, you know, be able to contribute to that and to give the fans that experience again, because obviously it's been a while since and since they've had that chance.
Fine margins. Craig Levein obviously left for the Scotland job, John, and Peter Houston was promoted eventually to manager, made you captain, which is again a tremendous honour. What kind of captain were you, John?
Good question. I think you'd have to ask my teammates. I always felt I was quite vocal on the pitch. I never felt I needed an armband to lead. It was a great honour and you know, something that I really enjoyed. You know, it did, you know, walking out at Tannadice with the armband on always made you feel 10 feet tall. You know, but as I said, I didn't feel like I needed that armband to try and help my teammates, and I think I was someone who tried to put the team first. You know, whether that was, you know, I always felt like I was, you know, I wasn't afraid of that confrontation with probably authority. You know, if I felt something or someone had been wronged within the group, I would air my opinion, and I always tried to do what was best for the players and the team, with the decisions I made as captain, and the situations that you maybe have to deal with.
Where if you spotted someone wasn't pulling their weight, would you tell them? Would you let them know?
Yeah, I think we had a few people that would do that. You know, you know, I think obviously before I was captain, you had Big Lee Wilkie, who was, you know, it was immense. Andy Webster was, you know, someone who would tell you. Barry Robson was one that, you know, obviously he had left at that stage. But you know, in that team, I think most of the players, if not all, were genuine. You know, they were honest players, and they knew if they'd done something wrong. And I don't think there was many that didn't pull their weight. But there might be one where you would maybe have to just tell them, like, come on, we need more from you. Or, you know, I don't think if someone's not playing well, I think they know it, and I don't think by telling them they're not playing well, I think sometimes can have a detrimental effect. So you do get to know your players, and it's probably a bit like, when you go into that coaching side as well, you have to realise that everybody is different. Everybody reacts differently to different different situations, different scenarios, and telling someone they're not playing well might work for one person, but it's not going to necessarily work for the next person. So you need to quickly work out who can take that and who can't take it. And then it might be that you're going over and you're putting an arm around them to say, look, come on, 1-to-1, or it might be that you dig someone out in front of the group, and you get a reaction that way. So again, it comes down to the character of the player and the character of the person, and working out, you as the individual, working out what you can and can't say to certain people.
Brilliant. John, I'm not sure if it was that season, the season after the cup final, or the season after that, I can't remember, that you were on fire one season. I'm not sure if you know, but the season you were on fire, you had a game to goal ratio of, I think it was a goal every 2 games, which is not bad at all. So there was a season after, because you played in Europe again. The team finished 4th in the league, and you were nominated for Scottish Player of the Year.
Yeah.
See, given the number of goals you scored, were you disappointed not to win it?
No, not at all. I think to be nominated is a fantastic honour. It's a great feeling. But look, I always as I said earlier, I was always more about, it was a team first mentality. It was, if the team is winning, team's doing well, then I'm contributing in some way. And I was never the type of player that would get the ball and I would do a skill and beat someone and score. So I relied heavily on my teammates to score goals. And that nomination, I think, was, for me, it was a team nomination, because, as I said, if I hadn't got Paul Dixon, or I hadn't got, whether it was Barry Douglas or Willow Flood or Gary McCoy-Stephen or whoever assisting me, then I wouldn't score goals. So, I very much put that down to my teammates and their contribution to my game at that time.
I think, just a personal opinion, for a non-Old Firm player to score that many goals is quite unique, in my opinion. And I think if you did play for one of the Old Firm at that point, you probably would have won the award. But again, that's just a personal opinion. Season after that, John, United finished 6th, which I know some of the fans were disappointed with, given the success of previous seasons. You also lost an epic semi-final against Celtic in the cup. Went out of Europe to Dynamo Moscow. So in February, Jackie McNamara came in.
Yeah.
His reign got off to a flying start. Obviously, I think he scored against Rangers in the cup. What was the jump? Because he came in and relatively quickly played Rangers, and it seemed to be a changed team. Were the players, did something go off in the players, or was it just another game for you at that point? I'm interested if a change of manager made any difference to
I think
team.
Sometimes it does. I think sometimes when you see a new manager come in, it has an effect. There was obviously an awful lot of stuff going on off the park at the time that probably had affected performances. I'm not trying to make excuses, but sometimes the issues that maybe Eusty was having with the club, and can sometimes have a detrimental effect. And obviously when the decision was made and the new manager comes in, it can be like, it's a fresh start for everyone. And I think you do find then that maybe players that haven't performed or haven't been in the team see it as an opportunity to stake a claim. And I think that competition for places sparks up again. And because obviously managers will probably have a team that they prefer to play if everyone's fit. And I think when a new manager comes in at any club, it does give everyone that opportunity to try and get themselves in the team. And then obviously playing Rangers, who were down in the lower leagues at the time, they obviously came through, probably feeling like that they were a Premiership team and a Premiership side, and we obviously wanted to show that we were the better team, and obviously got off to a fantastic start. I think Johnny Russell scored after
you flicked on.
Yeah, maybe less than a minute. Johnny scored, and again, situations like that, and goals change games, and they can swing the momentum. And I think when Johnny scored after a minute, obviously we get that massive lift. The crowd are on the edge of their seat. They're they're buzzing, and obviously their crowd just dies down. And then we scored again probably shortly afterwards to go 2-0. And so yeah, I think, you know, when you're on top in games like that, I think it's important that you take the initiative and you take that advantage that you have. And if you can score in them moments of the game, I do think that it obviously gives you a massive chance of then going on to see the game out. And yeah, it was just a really good atmosphere, and I think it helped again by the Rangers situation and Johnny scoring within inside the first minute.
You mentioned earlier on Lee Wilkie was thrown up top as an emergency striker. Lee actually played a couple of games as striker. He started to move back and play centre back in a few games. How did that come about, John?
Yeah, so it was Gary Kennett had a suspension, and we hadn't got any other centre backs. So I think it was Dillo and Gary Kennett were the two centre backs at the time. I think we had injuries to other positions. So Eustace had pulled me at the time, and he just said, "Look," he said, "if I need you to play centre back, do you think you could play centre back?" And I kind of just again was like, "Yeah, I'm sure I could do it." Like, you know, and I didn't see it as dissimilar to what I'd done. You know, I kind of thought I have a striker's mentality, so I could maybe use that to my advantage playing against a striker. You know, you know what they're trying to do. So yeah, so I kind of got asked if I would do it and if I could do it, and I just thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. It's for one game, see what happens. But the games at that time kept getting called off because of there was ice or there was bad snow at the time. And it just kept getting put off. And then eventually, I think it was Hibs. It was Hibs maybe where I'd done it. And again, it was something, again, I was playing with Sean, who, you know, was great. He just talked me through it. And I thought we had a good relationship. You know, I would kind of make the decision that, look, I'll go and compete for the things in the air and you give the cover because you've got the pace. Yeah, so it was good. I did enjoy the experience. I felt comfortable. I actually enjoyed playing against the more physical strikers more than I did the little nippy quick strikers. You know, and a couple of times that when they came up against the quicker ones, I just tried to nail them early so they would go over to Sean's side, you know. Lee Griffiths, for instance, I remember playing Celtic and first 5 minutes I smashed him. I just thought I need to nail him early and get him over to Dillo's side so Dillo has to deal with him. So I done that, and he just went over to Sean, and Sean had to deal with him for the rest of the game.
So what did you prefer then, John? Striker or centre back?
No, I preferred striker. I liked playing up front, and it was kind of where I'd, you know, all my career I'd been used to playing. I did enjoy the centre back role. I have to admit I did enjoy it. I just felt there was a better impact up front.
Brilliant. You ended up leaving United when your contract expired. John, you moved to Rangers. How did that move come about?
Yeah, so I was obviously at the club 6.5 years. Really enjoyed my time, and we were negotiating a new contract. And you know, you mentioned that I'd scored, you know, a remarkable number of goals, and then the season then that my contract was expiring, I scored quite a few goals again, whilst playing a number of games as centre back. But yeah, I kind of, personally, I was looking for a bit more security than I was getting offered. I got offered a 1-year contract. The club had a policy where once you hit 30 years of age, they don't offer anything more than a 1-year contract. And I think with my injury issues as well, they kind of felt that it was probably a risk to offer me any more. But I kind of looked at it along the lines of, you know, I'd contributed a lot to the side. I'd played a lot of games. I think my track record over the last 2 seasons in the run up to my contract finishing, you know, I'd played nearly every game. So I didn't feel like the injuries were an issue. I felt I was as fit as I'd ever been. So it was kind of just, you know, loggerheads with the contract length more than anything else. And so we decided, my wife and myself, we spoke about it, and we decided just to see the contract down and see what popped up. And then once obviously January comes about, and you're, you know, once you go into that last 6 months of your contract, you're allowed to speak to other clubs. And I got a phone call say that Rangers were interested. Would I be interested in speaking to Ali? And yeah, I just thought it was, you know, to go and play for Ali McCoist for me was first and foremost the main reason why I wanted to go. You know, when we knocked Rangers out that year in 2010, again, I've spoken about this previously, but you know, I just always remember celebrating. You know, David Robertson scores 89th, 90th minute, and we knocked them out. They were on course to do the treble, and you know, coming off the pitch, and Ali McCoy is waiting at the tunnel to shake everyone's hand and wish us all the best and congratulate us, and it stuck with me. And I just thought, you know what, that is, you know, such a remarkable thing to have. You know, to have that disappointment of getting beat and to potentially losing the treble that night. You know, and to still have the humility to stand and wait for everyone to shake our hands, to come off and congratulate and wish us all the best. That stuck with me, and I just thought, like, I would love the opportunity to play for someone like that, and obviously it's a huge football club. You know, Ibrox, 50,000 people. Financially, it was a better move as well. You know, the 2-year contract on more money as well, which obviously at that stage of my career comes into play. But yeah, there was a number of factors that made me make the move. I think if I'm being brutally honest, if I had been offered a 2-year contract initially when I'd been speaking to them, I would have signed it there and then, and I would have probably seen my career out at United. But yeah, it was unfortunate that didn't come to light, and I would have obviously loved to stay, but you know, the opportunity to go and, as I said, play for someone like Ali and play for Rangers was a great, you know, couple of years, something I enjoyed.
It's you've obviously got a great love for United and the club itself. See, before the move to Rangers, is a part of you worried about what the United fans will think and their response to you signing for Rangers? It's maybe a bit of an unfair question, John, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. There was obviously the two clubs obviously don't really get on, or the fans don't get on, and I'd obviously had that relationship with the United fans. You know, obviously the put your hands up thing, and obviously club captain. You know, so yeah, it does come into your thinking. But at the end of the day, you know, I think I had to look at it along the lines of, you know, I wanted to have a bit more security in my life at that time. You know, I had just had my second child, so you know, you're coming towards the end of your career. There's no two ways about it. You know, you're getting to 30. You know that you're not going to play forever. So, as I said, that would maybe have swayed financially. It was a better move. Now, I'm not saying it was massively financially, but it was more than I was on at United, and it was a 2-year contract. So that kind of comes into play, and yeah, you know, as you said, you are thinking, have I ruined something here? But I think any United fan that understands everything that goes with football would have understood why I made the decision I did. And I don't think many people would have not done what I did. So yeah, I think in that side of it, you know, there is that concern, but you know, you have to make that decision, you have to stick by it, and you have to own that decision, I suppose.
And on the other side of that, John, you're worried about the response from the Rangers fan, because obviously because you're obviously from Dublin, and I think you're a Catholic as well. Are you worried about any sort of backlash from them based on your religious background? I can only imagine the turmoil you're going through making this decision, John. To be 100%
no, there's
honest.
obviously a lot. There's obviously a lot going with it, but see, in the greater scheme of things, you know, there wasn't many other options on the table, to be honest. I know a lot of people at the time had said to me, "Oh, you could maybe go to England, you could maybe do this." But to be honest, I had no ambition to go back down to England, you know, and I think partly because, you know, the injuries I'd had, I quite enjoyed Scotland, where it was Saturday. You know, there was the occasional midweek game. So, in terms of the load on my body, playing in Scotland suited me. Going back to England, where you're playing, you know, 2-3 games a week, would have been, you know, at that stage of my career, would have, you know, pushed the end nearer. So yeah, but in terms of the fans, etc., going to Rangers, look, I wasn't overly bothered. Yes, there was probably some negativity from all angles, from Rangers and Celtic fans, and probably a few United fans. But as I said, you make a decision like that, and at the end of the day, it's football. It's a game. I'm not, a religious person at all. I was obviously born into a Catholic family, but personally, I'm not a practicing Catholic. So the religion side of things is something that I don't understand in terms of how you can dislike someone for a belief. So I just seen it as I'm going to play football for a big football club that have a big fan base, and anything outside of that, I kind of just blocked my mind off to it. And I am quite thick-skinned, and I am. My wife always says to me, I've got no emotions. I'm quite emotionally, strong, I suppose. I don't try and things like that don't really affect me, and I think that's partly down to the fact that, I don't read negativity. I don't read positivity. I just, don't read any of the press. And I think that for me is one of the biggest things. If you read enough comments that tell you you're this or you're that, eventually, regardless of how strong you are mentally, it is going to have an effect on you. So I kind of made a decision. It was probably earlier in my career that I made a decision. I'm not going to read, any press or anything like that can have a detrimental effect on me as a person and then as a player.
Right, that's more great advice, John. Let's get back to the football. I'm keen to. That first season at Rangers, I think 25 goals, massive success, that's in League One. So what are the main differences between the Scottish Premiership and League One?
Yeah, it's obviously different. You're playing against part-time players who aren't training every day. They try their best. But what I found was, when you're playing against the part-time teams, after 70 minutes, the game kind of opens up for you, and the players probably mentally start to switch off. So, they give everything, for the full 90 minutes. But, after 70 minutes, you kind of see that, the fatigue sets in, or, as I said, mentally, one or two will switch off and more opportunities become available. So the games that were maybe close up until then, you kind of felt, right, we can win it in the last 20. The other games where if you score early, if you score a couple of goals early, the mentality of that team is probably to try and shut up shop and try not to concede too many goals. But yeah, I think at that level, we were expected to win and win comfortably. And I think there was probably a bit of discomfort from the fans when the expectation levels were so high that if you weren't 3-4-0 up at half time, they let you know about it, should I say. But yeah, the biggest difference from the Premiership to that level for me was probably that in the latter stages of the game it became more open.
Brilliant. You then moved to Raith Rovers, John, and then into coaching. Where did that coaching bug come from?
Well, I think when I was at United, I'd taken an interest, and I think myself, Sean, Willow, and a few other lads were starting to get to that age where you're starting to think about when you finish, and you're starting to maybe think about putting things in place that, when you finish, the possibility of maybe stepping into a coaching role. So we all went on our B licence in 2011 in Stirling. They were doing the course over the international break. So, luckily enough for us, we weren't good enough to play international football, so we could go on these courses. So it was probably around then, and I went obviously to Raith. When I left Rangers, I had in my head the thoughts of going abroad for a season or two, just to experience a different culture, to try and learn a different styles, and just try and learn from a different way. But it just never materialised. So I came back and I went out to South Africa actually for a week to the same team Simon Murray ended up at Bidvest Wits. I went out there for a week, and when I came back, I spoke to Ray McKinnon about going in at Raith on a short-term contract till the January, when a lot of them foreign markets then open up again. So it was kind of a platform for me to just play and stay match fit until the January. with the view to that happening. But then in the October, I got a phone call off Craig to see if, obviously the under-20s role had become available, to see if it would be interested in speaking to them. So I went and I met Craig, Robbie and Anne, and I spoke to them about the role, and I liked what I heard. They obviously liked what they heard. So I got offered the job. And yeah, I had planned on doing my A license this summer, at the end of that season. And so I went on the A license that summer as well, whilst I was in that role. And I just loved it. I felt the under-20s was a great role for me to go in at. I felt, and to go in and work with elite players and, international players at their own age groups. And I felt it was accelerated learning in terms of, putting sessions on, dealing with situations and circumstances that you're probably not used to as a player. I'd have session plans set up. And I think with the under-20s, it was more about the development and the individual side of it, because, your players are kind of limited in terms of your numbers. You maybe have, at best, you'll have 12. But sometimes you maybe have 2 or 3. So, there was times when I'd go in the morning and I'd have maybe 9, and I'd look at my players and I think, right, I've got 5 of them are defenders, so I'm going to maybe work on defending, I'm going to work on helping them improve. And then you have your session set up, 10 minutes to go, and Stevie Crawford would come in and say, oh, big man, Robbie wants 1, 2 and 3, and 3 defenders would go missing. And now you're left with, maybe extra midfielders. So then you're thinking, I need to quickly think about changing this session and adapting it so it works for the players that I have at my disposal. And I think, I always describe that feeling. It's like a duck, on top of the water. You look calm and graceful, and underneath their legs are going 100 miles an hour. And that's what it felt like inside. You were panicking. And for a young coach, you're trying to change things and make it look like, you still know what you're doing. And to be fair to the players were great. They always adapted with you, and they were always great and very, very understanding that if someone got taken away last minute and you had to quickly change something, they understood. And as I said, I felt that really accelerated me as a coach and my understanding of the coaching side, because it is different. It's totally different to playing. And I think during my time at United, when I was injured, I think, you're sitting in the stand and you're watching games, and I never really just watched the game for the sake of watching it. I would always watch a position and try and get a better understanding of it. So I think subconsciously, when I was there at United and I was injured, it was probably the time that I started to really formulate plans in my head and ideas. And you'd always write down the sessions that you enjoyed doing, or even the ones that maybe you didn't enjoy doing, but you would try and work out the reasons that the coach was doing them. I was someone that was always interested in it. And as I said, when I was playing, I used to, if the sports scientist would put up, session plans, I would always ask him for a copy so I could take it home and I could have that copy and I could understand it and read it. And it was just something. And I think as well, the fact that, as I said earlier about my dad had been in that side, and he was someone, before he died, he was someone that I always bounced things off and ideas off. And so I think the fact that he'd been down that path as well kind of led me on that way as well.
Good. See that adaptability, John, of the first team pinching some of your players just before your session starts. They don't teach you that on the training courses, do they?
No, they don't. They don't. They should actually set that up where you set a session up and then they take half your players away. But that's the type of situations that when you're not. I always find when you're not at first team level, they're the situations that you have to deal with. And it has a knock-on effect, because the under-18s might be training and then you might want to take a couple of their players. But I always tried to do it early so that the coach that was with the 18s would always be able to have a session plan. And then, to be fair, if I lost players, I always just thought, I'll just do what I need to do and I'll work and I'll leave them because, he obviously wants to work on a certain thing. So I was quite comfortable with changing things and trying to be adaptable.
Good stuff. John, you mentioned earlier on the focus was on the individual and development, but what is your role as the under-20s manager? Is it Is it solely that, or is it to get the team winning, get the players ready for that first team? What kind of things would you focus on?
Yeah, well, I think it's trying to get the players ready to make that step into first team football. And you would focus on. I always try to sit down with the players, or at the start of a season, or whatever. You would maybe speak to the players about areas that they felt they need to improve, and then you would then try and work something that helped them work on them areas. Now, obviously, you as the coach have ideas of certain areas you want to try and improve them as well. But if the players want to work on something specifically, I think you need to give them that ownership, and you need to give them, because at the end of the day, it's their career, it's their journey, and they need to feel part of that process. So yes, you would work on the stuff that they felt they wanted to work on, whilst working on the stuff that you felt needed to be addressed. And I think a lot of it was trying to work on areas for improvement, alongside, I'm a big believer that improve your strengths as well. Don't just relax on them, because if you can make your strengths even stronger, it can then supplement any weaknesses that you may have. So yes, we worked on a lot of weaknesses and a lot of areas to improve, but whilst trying to work on strengths as well. And as I said, you didn't really have the numbers to work on team play, or it might be the day before a game when you'd have everyone, where you would maybe do shape and you'd work on your tactical plan. But a lot of the time it would maybe be position specific, individual development.
When Robbie Nielsen left, you were appointed joint manager, and when Ian Cathro left, you were appointed manager on an interim basis. Mm-hmm. Was that more learning on the job, John? Was that completely different to the under-20s role?
Yeah, 100%. Again, because as I said, when you're at first team level, I actually found it more comfortable. Probably because your numbers don't change, and you can plan. You can plan exactly what you want to do. And if someone comes in the morning and says they're not feeling well, or someone comes in and says they have a tight hamstring, you then become the person that pinches a player from the under-20s. So your numbers stay the same. So I found that I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the opposition analysis side of it, because at 20s level, it's hard to do because you don't get footage of the games of the opposition. It's maybe looking back on games that you've had against that team, to try and look to see if there's anything you can work on, or any areas that you needed to combat. But when you're working at first team level, you have access to the video, you have access to all the games, to the individual players that you're coming up against. So the detail you can go into is a lot more, and I really enjoyed it. And again, it's not something you can do yourself, so you need to delegate. You need to make sure that you're comfortable delegating, the staff members to do certain things, and have a trust in them that they can do that, and a belief that they can follow through on that. And I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed dealing with the media side of things. I enjoyed dealing with first team players. Players knocking on your door asking you why they're not playing. That side of it, you wouldn't get that at under 20s. You'd maybe get them saying to you at under 20s, is there a possibility of maybe getting back in your team, or what do I need to do to get back in your team? Where at first team, they just come up and say, why am I not playing? So you have to deal with them scenarios and them situations, and so it was something that I enjoyed. I felt comfortable doing, and it gave me that real bug to try and experience that again. And that going forward, long term, that's what I want to do. It's what I want to be as a head coach, and and it has certainly given me that appetite to get there again.
Just talking about that, John, obviously you've just mentioned that that's what you want to do going forward. There's a vacancy at Tannadice at the moment. Robbie's gone back to Hearts. Is there any exclusives on your next move?
Well, not that I know of just now. It's an attractive job for someone. It really is. It's a good squad of players. Fantastic club. As I said earlier, it's a club that I have a strong affiliation with, and I would love to work there in some capacity someday. Whether that's in the near future or further down the line, remains to be seen. But it is a job that I think is certainly attractive, and you know, whoever ends up in that role will end up in a really, really good job.
Brilliant. Jon, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I'm sure all the kids watching have taken a lot of inspiration from the stuff you've had to say. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time, and good luck in the future. All
Thanks
the best.
very much. No, and you. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.